Hello, everybody. A day late, but we're here. I'm Patty.
Hi, I'm Carrie.
And we are StudioR12 Stencils, and we are here to show you some fun techniques today. We're also here to answer your questions, even though we're not live because our internet for the whole region went into some sort of coma. We are back, and it looks like everything is fixed. So we're excited to see you next week on Tuesday. So this is the 18th.
This is the 17th.
17th. 4/17/24. So next week, whatever day that is. Yeah. I don't calendar very well without one in front of me. Anyway, so today we are going to show you a really great lesson. We have some announcements to make, and then we will get started. I have a phenomenal learning lesson for you, especially if you haven't ever shaded and highlighted through a stencil.
I don't have much today. Make sure you are following us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have different things that we post on all of our different social media outlets. Last week on our YouTube, we released a video for how to finish your painted wood signs like a pro. And there are some different mediums that you can use and different ways to apply them. And we get questions a lot about that. So I think it's going to be really helpful.
Yeah, that lesson, you watch it once and you probably will never watch it again. But then you'll realize there are different times and different reasons to use different things to finish your project. So how to do it well, how to get it done so it lasts, how to make it feel good. All of those things are all covered in that video. I think you'll love it.
Yeah, see, and I think that people are going to watch it over and over and over again.
You think?
Because I think when they finish their project and they're like, oh, you know what? I haven't painted this in a while.
Yeah.
I wonder how I should finish it. So I think it's something that people will watch over and over.
What I love about our YouTube channel, if you haven't subscribed, ring the bell, and give us some thumbs up and things like that, please do, because number one, it helps the algorithm, so it gets these videos to other painters. So it's not really so much about us and isn't that great, you know, we get so many thises and that's part of the piece, but it's also so that other painters can find the information. So if you think you like it, more than likely other people that paint like you will like it too.
Yeah. And then this weekend we have a fun new video release and maybe some new products for you.
Ooh. All right, you guys, so make sure you tune in Saturday morning. What time do you post the video?
I normally schedule it around 6 a.m.
Okay. So have your morning coffee or tea and then join us for some learning. All right, let's get started. We have a very excellent, fun new stencil. It's got paint all over it, but this is the pattern, and then there's a top pattern to it. So this is an overlay, and this will put the details on. However, sometimes you might want some depth. And so one thing about stenciling is if you just stencil a letter, so like say you have a black background and you do white lettering, then it's just black and white, which is good if you want simple, but sometimes you might want a shaded something. You might want a little bit of depth. You might want a little bit of richness. So today, that's what this lesson is all about. I'm going to show you how to do it really easily, and I'm going to give you some cool pro tips as well. So I have based everything, and I wrote my times down on this stencil. Yesterday, I looked at this, and it had so many colors. Looks like I laid an Easter egg, doesn't it? Like and it's going to change. You're going to be pretty impressed what we do to this and make it into something that's not Eastery. It'll still have a fresh spring vibe, but it won't look like an Easter egg. Anyway, I started at 12:09 while we were waiting for our internet tech to work on our internet, and finished at 12:25 to get all of these colors done. And so that's like 16 minutes. It didn't take hardly any time at all. That's including mixing my colors. I didn't stop and start the timer or anything like that. So that was really cool. I was impressed. And a pro tip, this is really important. I've got a very complex amount of colors doing all the things. And when we were deciding on the colors, I was like, wait, what am I doing? You know, like there's so many elements. Like this has got, 2 values. This has got 2 colors. There's a bunch of different kinds of flowers. And I needed to make notes. And if I made notes on a piece of paper, that would be nice. But when you make notes on your stencil, that says this is going to be your blue flower. These are going to be a blue flower. And I made 2 blues. And so I just put colors next to them. And then for the top coat, I did that. Let me see if I'll put this here. I did the same thing because the different elements have different colors on them. So I wanted to remember without doing crazy shenanigans. And if you make notes on your stencils, I've done this, I think, once before on camera, but if you make notes, you can just use some rubbing alcohol, and you can take your marker off of your stencil. So if you want to pass it on to a friend or sell it to somebody or something like that, and it needs to be, cleaned up, then you can totally make that happen with rubbing alcohol. Okay, so let's talk about shading and highlighting. A shade is a darker color and a highlight is a lighter color. And I think that's pretty clear for most people. And so I have my paints out here on my palette from yesterday, and I mixed some of them, and then I went and chose a darker version of the color. So this is the green that I used to do this, and I just did the swirling to base these, so it's not a strong base coat. If I wanted this to be more bold, I would go ahead and stipple 2 or 3 coats, but I did 1 swirl on everything. I don't think I had to do 2 on anything on this. And it just makes it nice and soft and nice and dreamy and stuff. So I've got number 54 and number 51. 51 might be slightly too dark for shading, but it's going to be perfect for the top details. So I'm going to mix the 2, and I'm just going to use a little bit because shading doesn't use as much paint as basing. And I have to say, if you don't know about our color chart, I'll take this out in just a second. The color chart was absolutely, I had a photo that Elaine, our designer, had laid out colors already for me. And I had a photo, and she had used, she's made a, what do you call the little chip? Yeah, she made a palette in her design program that she can pick these colors to use to make the mock-ups that you see on our website. So when you see those mock-ups, they were made from these 80 colors that we use here. This paint chart has the Deco Art conversion. It's the Sherwin-Williams mix. And will you hand me the little bottle? Is it right back there? So we use the Sherwin-Williams in these little sample, they call them sample bottles. And it's house paint, but it's cheap for how far it goes. And we paint a lot. I think Carrie posted how many brushes we were washing on our social media. And it's like in 2 or 3 days, we had one of these like packed. And then we had another one almost packed. And then Carrie had another one on the table packed. Yeah. So we go through a lot of paint here. And so anyway, Elaine makes these samples from here. So I was able to go, like if you were looking at a mock-up that she made on the website or a sample that we painted, you can go through and you can be like, oh, that looks like number 54, and use this to pick your colors out. And it's punched for putting in a binder. Very handy. It's been very popular. So then when you're going to shade, I'm going to shade first. I'm going to highlight second, not for any reason. If your highlight is going to come into where you think you're going to shade, then I would highlight first and shade second, because then the highlight or the shade will go over the top of your highlight, and highlights don't do so well going the other way, if that makes sense. Get the palette knife. So we have 2 palette knives. We have the Italian, and we have this regular palette knife. This one is fine. I like this one for big piles of paint because it will push things around really well. This is my favorite baby. I have been in love with this palette knife for 20 years. It's super flexible, so you can just kind of pounce the paints together, and it's super skinny so that when you get into your palette on these reusable Mylar palette sheets, you can, depending on how short you cut yours, you're limited on your space, so you don't get to drag around a beast. You want to be petite. Okay, so we're going to mix some 51 and 54, and I'll see if I like that color. Yeah, so see, that dropped it down by at least 2 notches. Sometimes it will just depend on how much white is in your mixing color. Now I wipe off my palette knife in the middle, and then I'm going to choose a medium-sized brush, and then we're always, not always, but mainly going to, you're going to shade at the base of something, or you're going to shade like you would shade under this wing because that wing sits over the top, and that's where you're going to cast a shadow. And then if a plant is out in nature, where it joins the stem, you're going to get, that's where this is going to shade that area. So we're looking for shadow opportunities under the flowers, under the stems, let's see, looking for petals, that kind of thing. So we're going to go in with our green, and wait till you see how easy this is to do. You're going to love it. Okay, they're going to go, make sure you're really wiped off, because you don't want to have to redo stuff here, so better to be more wiped off than not more wiped off. We're definitely going to use our multi-maskers today. Just don't want to get color on things I don't want color on. And then I'm just going to lightly, with kind of rounded motion, swirl on some highlights or some shadow. And then if I want it a little, so I'll take that away and I'll kind of look at it. We can peek. I'll get this one done and I'll decide if I need to give it a little bit more. Your pressure on this is super light, so you don't want to be heavy-handed. I'm a heavy-handed girl. I mean, absolutely. If I can overdo it, I will absolutely overdo it. So if you know that about yourself, overdo this. And that's always a good place to.
Well, and don't forget to use the internet if you're not sure. I think one of the hardest things about this is knowing where the shading goes and where the highlighting goes, that you can look up some greenery on Google or on Pinterest and see what real life greenery looks like and where the shading is and where the highlighting is, or look up a moth and see how the sun is hitting it, and then you'll know, you'll have something visually to look at and not have to guess.
Yeah, agreed. And then remember to, like, this is as folk art gets. At the end of the day, this is completely folk art, and it is not a life science project. So you're not going to be graded. You're not going to fail, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So don't feel like you have to have that. Okay, I'm liking where I'm about at right now. Oh, left one out. So he's at the bottom, and this would cast shadow down to there. This would cast shadow onto here. So these might be darker in general because they're at the bottom of the stem if we were thinking about it. Once again, it's folk art. And folk art just means art from folks. And that means not trained and not, they're stylized a little bit more. So you don't have to feel like everything's proper. One thing for color balance and choosing your colors and that kind of stuff. Once again, I had a conversation with one of our teachers at Boardroom, our in-person place in town here. And she had randomly just chose colors, like, you know, there you go, I'm going to do it with this. And I was like, now hang on a second, you got to get inspired by something. Don't be all living in a vacuum with the color chip chart and being like, yes, these colors will do. Like in my house always has number 18. It has a version of number 43 on the walls. Number 18 is my accent colors. I have some furniture pieces that have that, and I have probably a 22 mixed with a 10 sofa color and some other furniture things, and I love mustard accents. I'm always going to have those 3 colors in my house. So my inspiration for painting something like this, if I was putting it in my living room, would be something that would go with those colors. I wouldn't choose purple to go in there because I don't have anything purple, and the colors that I have wouldn't go with purple. So that's a way to get inspired. Don't forget to go to Pinterest. Pinterest search is so beautiful, and whereas Google people pay to get to the top, or they have scientisty SEO people that help people get to the top of the search, we go to Pinterest because we vote on Pinterest. How many hearts something gets, how many downloads. They do have advertising and stuff like that, but mainly Pinterest is voted by the artist and the people that go there to get inspired. So Pinterest is going to have really good inspiration for you. And boy, that's a whole lecture, sorry. Okay, so now we'll go on to the flowers. And I'll mask them. And they're going to be darker right under. I talked to my brush dry. That never happens. Okay, so I'm going to stipple right here to get it just darker. And then I'll go over here, stipple. And then I'll get my stem. I'm not going to make this a science thing. I'm not going to be exact. I just want some depth of color. And then I'll walk around and give them a little base. It's all about the base. So see how I'm getting that stem and then getting that base of that leaf? And then let's take a look at how that's looking. So see how that makes it? Look how this is just kind of misty and whatever, but this starts taking on life. I love this. This color is perfect. Okay, and then we'll just scumble down to get the bases of these little leaves. I could switch to a smaller brush, but I'm not gonna. Same. Lots of repeaty here, but you get to see how it comes to life. I could just do half of this, but I feel like there's things to know. What do you think, Carrie?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at some stuff that people were sending us.
Love it.
On Wednesdays, we asked for our stencil fans on our Facebook page to send us photos of the products or projects that they are painting. And it is a really fun way to get inspired by others and see how people are using the stencils, how they're mixing and matching them, the color schemes they are using. So it's a really cool thing to go check out every Wednesday on our Facebook page.
And you guys, we get so inspired by what you put in, what you sent to us. Like, we are so inspired. Hey, Steve, I think that this stencil might scale. Maybe it does not.
We do not. We only have one size of this stencil. No, I lied. We have 3 sizes of this stencil.
3 sizes. I love it. Oh, you guys.
But they are very large.
Yeah.
So the smallest we have is a 15.75 inches by 9 inches. And then it goes all the way up to a 26 by 15 inch.
You guys, go to the page where this is and look at the mock-ups. Elaine did. You should see this in black and white. It's incredible. It is absolutely incredible. It'd be great in the browns with the creams as well. It is an amazing stencil, and you could do it as a little piece of folk art for a baby's room by changing the colors like I've got here. You could make it sophisticated and elegant. It is one of my favorite new stencils. It is really cool. Okay, let's take a peek and see how we're doing. Oh, it's looking so good. Okay, just a few more greeneries.
So today is April 17th, 2024. We are going to do a giveaway of a 5-piece dome brush set.
Yay!
So we will do one giveaway on Facebook and one giveaway on YouTube. So how to enter to win is to comment and let us know that you are here, you are watching, and where you are from. And then we will announce, let's announce on Monday, April 22nd at 12 p.m. Eastern. We will announce the winners of the dome brush sets on Facebook, one on Facebook and one on YouTube.
Love it, you guys. That is a great, our dome brushes will make all the difference from bleeding under. It will change your hippie world. There we go. We're going to change your hippie world. That's what we're going to do. Okay, so now we're going to highlight the leaves as well. And let's see, we're going to go with probably number 80. Now, what we can do, okay, I can pull out number 80 and have a nice highlight color, or can reach across my palette and get my white. Your black and your whites are your neutrals. And a lot of times, if you need a color to be a little bit darker, you just cinch a little bit of one of these 2 colors into, or light and dark, into it and make a whole new color. So I think I'm going to do that instead of doing this, because then you have to own more paints. You know, like I like to work with an unlimited palette and be creative with how I get to my colors. Okay, so I'm just going to mix on top of this dry paint. If you didn't know this, if you haven't peeled off your paints, you can peel them, you can mix on top of them, that kind of thing. So I just make a bigger and deeper pile when they've dried. I know, it's kind of fun.
I can't do it.
It feels so artistic though. So I'm going to do more of the white than the green because I really want that to be soft. You see how many times I use that palette knife? Okay, so we're going to go in to a small, well, maybe a medium brush. And we're going to pick up the paint. We're always with a dry brush. The dome brushes work really well for this shading technique. You would never, unless it was a really big area and you were working with wet on wet paint, you would never be able to achieve this with one of the flat stencil brushes. So it's just hard. So this is possible because of dome brushes. So now I'm going to highlight at the tips.
Isn't this technique how you discovered swirling with a dome brush?
I think it is, yes.
You were shading a pear?
Yep. Yeah, I had a famous teacher who was well published come to teach at my shop in Portland, and she was using a dome type brush. It was a crescent, the skinny one, the flat ones, wherever.
I think are listed as Armes Lunas.
Yeah, we have those as well. We have a couple versions of them now. Okay, now I'm not getting a very good highlight on this. I'm getting more of a same color as I based it in, so I'm going to just go straight white with the dirty brush. Thank you, Steve, for reminding me of that.
So when she uses the dirty brush and doesn't get out a new brush, it's going to keep that color palette the same. She had that light green on it, and now she's adding the white. So it's not going to make it completely white because there is still a little bit of green on the brush. And that's something that's really great to use if you don't have a lot of brushes especially, but also to keep it in the same family.
Okay, green is done. Look at how cool that looks.
It's pretty.
And then when we put the top details over, it's going to give it the detail of the thing. So now let's go ahead and do, the pink really gets done with the top layer. So let's do a little bit with the yellow and the blue and the purple. So the purple I mixed with a little bit of the blues, and I mixed with white. So I'm going to take a little bit of that and a little bit of one of the blues and just make a color that goes with the palette. One thing that's really cool, so when you're mixing paints and you're trying to shade and highlight by mixing colors, this is your palette, and that means these colors, if they get along right here, then they're going to get along when you start mixing and matching them. So that is a really good thing to know. If you've got a palette of things, you can mix them together to create movement of color within your art. Okay, so wipe that out.
When we always list the colors that we're using in the description on our YouTube channel. For the description of each video, we have the colors that we use. So something that you might want to do if you like this color palette, maybe this is something that you get on our YouTube channel and write down all of the colors and maybe put it on a Post-it note so that you know if you want some pastels or some soft colors that go together, that these work well together.
Something to do as we're getting ready to publish the product that is for the disc journal binding for the stencil storage. Something that you could do is you could take a blank piece of our scrap mylar, punch it, put it in your Easter bunch of stencils. If you don't know what I'm talking about, we've organized these in these little clips, and you could tape a Post-it note onto something, but this would be a phenomenal Easter palette. So if you had spring and Easter, you could put one of these sheets and you could be like Gray Easter palette from this YouTube video, and then it would be tucked in your book for your future, like to know where the things are.
Well, even if you painted something and you really liked how it turned out, like when we cook from a cookbook, we'll write in the cookbook, I cooked it on this date, I really liked it, I would do this different. So you could do that with your stencil if you have colors that you really liked on it when you painted it, or a technique that you really liked. You can write that right on the stencil or on a Post-it note, and then you'll have it for next time.
Okay, something that I like to do a lot is I've got this purple color. That color turned out gorgeous. It was number 66 and number 20 mixed together, and I love that color. It worked out really well. But something that I like to do as we're bouncing around is I like to go into some of the places on my greenery and pull in just a little bit of some of those colors. It just walks the color around. I would never do it to the yellow, but I might do it on the tips of this moth. I think I'll use it as the shade for that. Okay, so see how I dug myself a little hole over here? The way that you fix a hole is, number one, you leave it alone. Get out of there. Don't keep rubbing, because it'll just, the wet paint is pulling on the wet paint and it's attracted together. And so it's drawing it back into the brush. So we want to let that be alone, and we're going to let it dry. Okay. And then another thing that I'm doing is I was pushing, and that's probably exactly what happened. Instead of turning my surface so that it was comfortable for me, I was shoving the paint towards the end of that leaf. I wasn't on top of it. This would be where I'd want to be. I want to get here, and I want to lead with the wet end on this tip, because that's going to be the darkest. And I want to walk towards that. Instead, I was pushing it in and then pulling it out. And this is super strong, and this has got a hole. So neither of those things are optimal. So make sure you turn your piece so that you get a good angle on it.
And we do have a video on how to prevent painting holes and how to fix them in case you run into it. I ran into it yesterday. I think I've painted eight samples this week. This weekend we are hosting several painters from across the country who are coming in to paint and have some fun with us. And we've been painting samples, and that's where all of my brushes came from. But I was definitely, toward the end of yesterday, started digging some holes. I was like, nope, gotta dry this a little bit. Gotta wait.
When Steve said something yesterday, we were frustrated about internet and the live and all of that, and we've got this deadline coming, and so everybody's a little bit like, let's get done, let's get done, let's get done. And so then we hurry, and when we hurry, that's when we make holes, that's when we make mistakes, that's when we do, all the things. Okay, so to fix that little bit of a hole I've got there, I'm going to go over here, and I'm just going to stipple a couple of little stips. A stip eye. That's what it is. It's a stip eye. Okay, and now I'll wipe off a little bit more, and I'm going to walk this one down a little bit further to feather it in. Okay, so now see how that got softer? That is such a good lesson to learn. So good. Okay, now I'm going to get under this little wing, not leaf, and 2 multi-maskers will be used. And I'm going to stipple this with a very dry brush, and now I'm going to start rubbing as I pull it out of that area. And then I'll bring this over here, mask off this area, and I'm going to rub up from that little bit that I can see. Stipple, stipple, stipple. I'm losing hairs on my brush. Every now and again, you'll get a brush that has some loose hairs. It's usually when the brush is new. So if you have a problem, just let us know, and we are good to fix it. We've only probably ever replaced maybe 10 brushes out of all of the brushes we've sold, and we've sold.
Well, do you want to talk about real quick what you do if that happens and you get a brush on your project? Yeah,
so if you saw me just now, I lost like 3 little hairs. This is why it happens, and then what you do about it. Where's my little sample? So the way that they make a brush is they bundle all of these hairs together, and they're blunt. They're not cut yet, so they're straight on one end and straight on the other. And then they have, a machine that grabs it, and then it dips it into this whatever mixture of glue that this is, and it grabs them all. But as you can imagine, that glue might not always make it to the very middle very well because that's very thick and a ton of hairs. And so some of them just didn't get contact with glue. They're going to fall out. That doesn't, now if you lose a lot of hairs, then you should talk to somebody.
A little bit's just kind of part of the breaking period.
Yes, exactly. So the more your brushes get used, the less that will happen. Anyway, so if you lose a hair on your thing, if you're not in muddy, wet paint, then you can just brush it off like I was just dry brushing the shadows on, so I don't need to worry about my paint being wet. So I just brushed it off. If you had it in wet paint, then you wait till it dries and then pick it off at the end. Okay, so that is how you handle that. And very important not to push that. Okay.
And I also think it's going to be determined by what area you're working on, what colors you're working on. So if you're working on that big moth, you can pull it off and it's okay. But if you are doing a black buffalo plaid over a white background and it's a little wet and you pull it, you're going to risk putting black on other pieces of your white background that you might not want to get that black on.
Yeah, truth. Okay, so I'm shading my number 77 yellow areas, which is the light areas, with number 8. Okay, and we're just going to do a little bit of that. And then we're going to do the top layer. And wait till you see what this does. That top layer is amazing. If you guys are liking this content, make sure that you do at least give us a thumbs up, because once again, that tells the world that we are what we say we are.
We're real girls.
We are real girls. Okay, so see how that just made a nice little fade? Isn't that amazing? So good. I love it. Okay, so just a little bit. And you notice that I kind of gave up on highlights because these are looking self-highlighted to me. And I'm not feeling like I need them because I swirled instead of doing the other. This green didn't seem to make a big difference, so even with the white, so I'm just gonna skip it. And then we're gonna have a second shade. Now this is, aha, I got stuff to say. When we add this greenery on here, these lines right here are gonna add this really dark on there. And that is in essence going to make my number 54 my highlight color. So I based with a highlight color, and then these strong accents are going to be my shadow color. So really we're doing a medium shade. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I like it. All right, so I'm going to do this one later. This has got in the picture, it's got gray, and I'm just going to do that afterwards because I have to go find a gray and mix it and do all that kind of stuff. We don't need to make this longer than it is. It needs to be. Okay, so this isn't about getting this done. It's about showing you how to shade and highlight and do that kind of thing. All right, so now we layer this on top and get it. Now we etch the lines of the things that you can tell where to put your stencil. If your board is a different size, like we tend to have, we have established over 7 years ago, standard sizes of stencils and standard sizes of surfaces, so that our stencils and our surfaces always fit. And that is super handy. And so if you don't want to choose, then you can look on our website. If it's a 17 by 9 or whatever the size is, generally speaking, you should be able to see a surface that's exactly the same, so you can have the benefit of having everything be exactly the same, like I do. Okay, so now we're going to get 51. Are you ready to be mesmerized by this? It's so cool. I'm going to go ahead and pull out some colors all at one time. And so I need a yellow. I've got yellow. And I'm going to get 77 out too. I might want that one brighter. So notice just a drop of these colors because they won't be too much. I've got green, but I need just this. Okay, I'm going to walk through some brushes today, girls. Here we go. I guess I should say girls and guys because we've got a good bunch of guys with us now. All right, so new paper towel. And we're going to go with the dark green because that's the one I think will show the most. I'm not going to wipe out everything because I'm going to go in and stipple. Yeah, I'm going to swirl. If you see me stippling, you know there's a dumb reason for it. I hate to stipple. Love to swirl.
After painting 5 projects yesterday, my arm was sore from stippling.
Yeah, it's a workout. And I could paint all day long and swirl, and there's no pressure to it. And you're not pound, 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 pound. I mean, you literally are making effort when you are stippling. So learn to swirl, practice on a paper cardboard box. Okay, let's.
Sometimes when Carrie's stippling, I gotta make sure there's not an Apache helicopter outside.
Hey now.
I didn't know if we had like a truck out there yesterday.
Yeah.
Because it was like rumbly, you know, and it was like, what is going on? And then it would stop, and I was, oh, Carrie's stippling.
Okay, stippling. I
Okay, you
cannot
ready?
wait till next time we need to paint samples, and you guys can come paint them with me.
Whoa, that looks cool.
Look at how cool
That is very cool.
See how much that depth added? So I could go a little darker if I wanted to.
And that took like 40 seconds.
Yeah.
I know.
So if I wanted to go just a little bit darker, to be like a little bit more dramatic. This is what takes it out of the Easter egg stage, is these strong accents. See how long that took? No time. Let's take a look. Boom.
Well, the cool thing about this project is that if you're watching the shading and highlighting and you're starting to get a little panicky, you can shade and highlight through this stencil.
Yeah.
And so then if you're not to the point where you want to do the shading and highlighting, then you can just use the parts of the stencil, and the parts of the stencil will help you out.
Yeah, and you do not have to. Elaine did the mock-ups on this with without shading and highlighting, so you can see what that looks like, and they're beautiful. This she put one of the mock-ups. So in order to show you things in rooms, we used to try to stage rooms and stuff like that, and that's just very hard to do on our size company. And so we put the painted thing in a photo room, and then we can say, like, this is, imagine this looking like this in this room. She put one of these big over the top of a bed, a headboard, and it's magic. Like, really, like, it's outstanding. Okay, so now I did this. Let's take a look. So that's what those, see how the, oops, I forgot 2 of them. But that's how they're gonna look. And then if I wanted to adjust and go a little bit further, so now I'm shading through my top stencil. So I could go and just stipple just a little bit at the base of each to anchor that flower and give it a little bit stronger presence.
Well, and this is a good time to also remind that the dome brushes come in several different sizes. For a lot of this project, Patty used the big dome brush, the 5/8. That's the one that we use most often. But when you're getting into small areas with lots of little color changes, then your small dome brushes can really come in handy.
Like, I couldn't do this very well with a big one. So my recommendation is to buy a couple of sets of the, like, you know, once a month, buy a set of brushes. Because you do need multiples if you're going to do this, because once they get in water, you have to wait at least a day to get them to use them. Okay, so I'm going to dump this in water now. But my recommendation is buy a couple of sets, because you get a better deal on the sets, and then go and buy some more of the bigger ones, because we use those the most. Depends on how big you paint. And then don't forget our Boss Daddy, the Jumbo Dome, which is brand new. This one is twice the size of the biggest size one, and on these big holes, that is what I used, because that will cover your real estate and will not make little circly swirls, because like you get like 3 swirls and you're done.
Yeah.
I think maybe that's why it only took 16 minutes, as I was using the big enough brush. Okay, so let's take a look at that pink. Yeah, so see how I anchored the little bit at the bottom? Super cool. Now on these little blue flowers, they just are going to get a dot, so I'm going to do that without the stencil. And this guy gets yellow, so we'll get into our yellow.
And these kind of stencils that have a lot going on they are stencils that are really good projects to peek on.
Yeah.
Because
Good
where
point.
you have leaves and flowers and the moths all close together, there is a chance that you could potentially ghost. Ghosting means you're painting your moth and it's yellow and you have a little bit of a brain fart and forget what you're doing and didn't put down your multi-masker, and then oops, you got your yellow where it should be green for your leaf. Once you pick it up and see it, you can use your click eraser, get it wet, go back through and erase the yellow that's not supposed to be there. Now, sometimes if you're using the same color palette, it might work. You might not notice it, but it's good to fix it while you're doing it.
Okay, so did anybody pick up that I was stippling just then? Because, let me tell you why. There's reasons for everything that I do. And I used to teach, I had 80 Japanese students. I was in Portland, Oregon, and I had a studio, and painting in Japan was the rage. It was like scrapbooking was for us here. And I had 80 Japanese students a month, and they were the wives of the men who had the job in Portland. And then I would have to figure out how to teach them without language. And so I would have to dig in my head, look at my hand, do different shenanigans to figure out how to teach these women. And it made me such a better teacher because I'm going to give you the why. I'm always going to tell you like the how, the why, the where, all of that kind of stuff, because I've had to learn, like for 5 years I was doing this, and it's important to know why you're changing what you're doing. Okay, why did I stipple? Because these are small holes, number one, and this is yellow going over a dark color. Yellow over a dark color will not cover, and so I stippled to make the paint stronger. When you stipple, you get stronger paint. When you swirl, you get lighter paint. But lighter paint means you can do 2 coats in the same time, and it's not work. So I'm going to go back through, probably swirl in this case, just for the second coat so it covers. But covering with yellow is terrible. Let's take a look before I get my brush in the water. Yay! I think I'm going to highlight those. I don't like how dark they are. I mixed the colors because I wasn't certain. That's why peeking is so important. And I would not want to be responsible for putting this on here exactly, although with the folk artness, it wouldn't be too bad. Okay, so I'm neutralizing, and I think I'll pick up white. And I'll just scumble over the top. And now I can see it. So now it matches, its colors match a little bit over here to this moth. So that's better. Now we'll get into white. We are going through the brushes. Okay, so see how this brush is very teal looking on the top? That's stained and probably dried. You could use some rubbing alcohol or something like that to clean that paint out. But it's still usable, it's still flexible, so I'm just gonna use that. And then stipple these guys. Once again, I'm covering a light color over a dark. And I'm also not wiping off as much, if you noticed, because number one, I'm dome. Dome brushes don't bleed as like any other kind of brush. But I also want it heavier. Okay, let's take a peek. And I can see it, but I need another coat. Okay, peeky-boo. All right, now it's time for these guys. And we're going into this green number 54. Okay, and we have these big guys. I need to phone a friend. Hang on a second. I've got a picture of where I'm going with this. Okay, that's what I told myself. I wasn't believing. So we're going right in there, right on these little green things. And then these guys get green, little polka dots. Didn't quite make enough notes. And then I'll leave that brush sitting here for just a minute because I might need a little bit more. Come on. Running out of little brushes. So why would I use a little brush in this detail? Because I don't want to mask everything with the multi-masker. I want to just kind of keep moving. I'm not trying to speed. You guys catch me if you see me doing that. But by using a smaller brush, I won't have to mask next to my elements. Let's take a look and see if that's going to be pink enough. I think I need to mix a little bit of my darker color in with my lighter color. I'm just brush mixing that. That almost looked a little bit peachy. And I'm not ready for a family change in my colors here. Okay, oh, that's so much better, isn't it? Carrie, can you grab that collection of buttons?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just a second. There's just... Also, I've got these little dots over here on the wings. Sometimes you might want to stipple for little tiny areas. It's hard for the brush to swirl into tiny areas. Okay, that's really cool. So about 20 years ago, I bought this collection of buttons. And so they inspired me so much. Does that not look like my palette here?
Yes, it does.
Isn't that amazing? So sometimes you just don't know what will inspire you. And they've sat, I need to get a glass container because they have sat in this plastic for so long that it's orange. So anyway, but look for inspiration in the fabric aisle. Look for inspiration in, you know, wherever you're at shopping around and stuff, because you never know when you're going to get inspired. And I've used that palette on a ton of projects.
Wouldn't it would be super cute maybe to put these little like light yellow ones on top of your flowers?
Yes.
And then add some dimension to your project.
Super
with your
cute.
buttons.
Yeah. So take the flowers. Oh, you know what? Is we've got all of these yellow dots. Wouldn't it be fun to add? Oh,
Yep.
that'd be super fun. Just glue them on. Gotta get back to you.
Thank you.
And then I'll finish my pink. And we've got just, I think, do I have one more lesson in here? Well, we've got a reveal, so we'll do that. And then see if I can remember what I
I'm
wanted to say.
very impatiently waiting for this reveal because I can't see over here when you pink.
No, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, did I?
But I
Okay, we got to do the yellow dots. Maybe I'll go ahead and just stipple those, and I think we will do one more green swirl on the details here. Into water, and then let's just go ahead and do our yellow. And we'll do this yellow. I'm going to do it strong, barely tapping anything off. I don't think I tapped it on the palette. Oh, that's all the flowers. One more. Okay. Dum 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 dum. Here we go. Reveal time. Ta-da!
It's so pretty.
It's so pretty. I saw this when Elaine got it done, and I was just like, I am painting it exactly like that.
Yeah, that's
so
awesome.
gorgeous. Look at the details that you can add using your dome brushes through a stencil. You can do this with anything with a stencil, any lettering. You can do an ombre fade. That's basically what I did on this leaf was an ombre.
Yeah.
So ombre is just where you have like low lights, highlights, that kind of stuff. And then the dark just changes it from Easter egg to spring. And what I love about it is you could hang it this way. You can hang it this way. You could make a coat rack out of it. You could like, oh, this is so cool.
Well, you could even use that as a background and put a smaller piece over top of it with a name or...
Yeah, or like, I don't think I have one sitting around here. like a welcome and then
Yeah,
paint it.
there's a farmhouse. It doesn't really go with our theme, but it could show you what it would look like to have something over top of it.
Yeah. And you could do it down low. Like the other day, we played with that. So you could, and then the cutout words, we can do, I don't know if we have a product for personalizing the lettering for that, but it would be so cool to be like Amelia.
Yeah, we do not at this time.
Yeah. So maybe we'll do that in the future. You guys let us know if you want to see something like that. So I hope that you loved this lesson. I enjoyed doing it. It was not work at all. It actually just went very smoothly. I think we've probably been about an hour. I seem to go on and on about 1 hour. But anyway, I think the lessons are so good in this. I hope that you stick around, watch to the end, and Tuesday is the day. We're going to use our great internet, and we're going to go live. We'll see you then.